BPod Studios.
Zolak and Bertrand get you through the workday at 10. Right now, it's Toucher and Hardy on the Sports Hub.
Hey, we're Toucher and Hardy. This hour of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Hardy's out gallivanting around for February break. Your kid, John, your kids are off. What are they doing?
We take them when I go home each day this week. We'll take them out somewhere. We went to that place in Natick that just opened called Putt Shack yesterday.
Why will you take them on vacation to Natick? You make a good living. Your wife makes a good living.
Unfortunately, we weren't sure how the Celtics, when we were planning this 3-4 months ago, we weren't sure how the Celtic games are going to shake out. And I have Brian.
Yeah, you have none of
them. Yeah, well, we didn't know that at the time.
So you would stop a family vacation, because this is actually good because it will lead me to what I want to talk about.
Okay.
But you would stop a family vacation in order to call Bryant basketball?
I get paid for it, yes.
Jonathan.
What? Frederick.
Jonathan, you would your kids only get so much vacation. You would stop
They can still go on vacation. I just have to stay here.
They need a fatherly influence.
Yeah, he's really not vital to the family vacation.
My God!
They're going skiing for at least one day, maybe two this week, and then we have different little things that we're doing with them. But no, I couldn't go.
There's probably a house you can rent up there in Vermont. Well, I'll tell you this: is that the dumbest thing that I heard anyone get upset about was Anthony Rendon. He is the Los Angeles Angels third baseman. If you don't know this, he's a professional baseball player that makes a lot of money.
7 years, $254 million.
400. You get dyslexia there a little bit, but it's $245 million.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
I'm so sorry.
Well, he had the audacity, ladies and gentlemen, to say he was asked about baseball, and he goes, "It's never been a top priority for me." And he goes, "This is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith, my family come first before this job. So if those things come before it, I'm leaving." And then people got upset at him.
I don't really believe him.
I don't believe him either.
He makes $38.5 million a year. I don't think if his family or faith needed to come first that he would walk away from that.
I know, but what he said is a cliche. I mean, it's something that you're supposed to believe. Like a healthy human being.
Yes.
Is supposed to put I guess whatever your faith is, but you're supposed to certainly put family ahead of your job. And if you're just talking in colloquialisms, or just if you just want to say things like, my faith and my family, I want to thank God and my family. I mean, that's what you're supposed to think. Like if you were given a textbook on how to live life, what you're at least supposed to say to other people, whether you believe it or not, that's it. No one's supposed to. You're not supposed to go well, it would if your kid was sick and they were going to die, would you take them dying if it meant you not getting fired? You should probably say, yeah, I would rather get fired than have my kid die. So thereby, your job is less important than your family. So it just seems like he just tossed out something that that if something happened to my family and I had to quit my job, I'd do it. I mean, this is a hypothetical that's not going to happen. For instance, if he knocked up his wife, and he is 33, so it's still very possible. If he knocked up his wife or his girlfriend or something, and they were having a child in July, chances are he missed a couple games to see the kid get born, and I don't think that anyone would have a huge problem with that. So is this what we're doing? That he just spoke in a cliche. And if you were his family and he said, "You know what? Baseball is way more important than my kids. I find it. I live and die by what happens on the field. My kids, they take a back seat to this whole baseball thing." How would his family feel? I just went Craig Carton, who, by the way, is does an hour-long public service recovery gambling show on Saturdays, said it was tone deaf, but that's just recovery talk, is faith and family. It's like there's no way that he's not actively involved or was. I mean, the guy went to jail for gambling.
Yes.
But and I'm not judging him for it. I mean, that's his own business, and I don't think it's anything he should be punished for any further. But I mean, he's like, that was tone deaf. But that's what you have to. There's no way when he was in jail that's not what they recite to you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Anthony Rendon, even though John lives his life this way, Ryan, that John lives his life this way, that Bryant basketball, the two nickels that he gets to rub together after a Bryant basketball game is worth more than the lifelong memories he'd have traveling with his children.
It's not like I don't see the children. They're here.
But you would
time together.
You were denying them great life experience.
Yes,
I mean, you were so proud of your trip to Seattle that you wear that Kraken cap everywhere, so you know the value of travel.
Yeah.
And
going to London this summer. It's not as
now
though we're denying
now
them.
You're shoving it in there. They're going to love it.
You're the one accusing me of not providing worldly experiences for my kids, and I'm telling you I am.
I'll tell you, it's not worldly what I said, John. I didn't say worldly at all. I just said time.
Well, maybe it's Ryan. I should direct this at.
So London, Ontario, is that where you're going?
Well, I'll tell you what. There's nothing that a
British Columbia, if I remember correctly, is where Vancouver is.
A middle school kid will soak up like the history of old London town. They're going to have the time of their lives.
Have you taken your kids to London?
No, I love London, but they would be miserable.
Buckingham Palace, Big Ben, all of these things that they've heard about.
Yeah, they're going to.
You have no interest in taking them now.
They would no. I'm taking my son. You know where I'm taking my son in March is to Atlantis. Why? There's water slides and it's warm. That's why. I know my audience. No, if I took them to England, they wouldn't care at all. My daughter would probably like it, but my son certainly wouldn't. My son, no. My daughter would like it because it's a big city with food and you could take her to like a play. But she just as soon go to New York.
Very popular thing to do in London. Go to plays.
Yeah, especially for middle school boys.
Theaters.
I'm sure that they're very keen on the new musicals. Or you could take them to Shakespeare. I'm sure they would enjoy that.
Actually, they're taking Shakespeare in class right now.
Well, I'm sure they would love nothing more to see it acted out on the big
one
stage.
Kid is soaking it all up. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
chip off the old block.
I'll tell you. Have any of them at least picked up a woodwind?
No.
Jonathan.
No. I had one kid who took saxophone for 3 years and gave it up.
Jonathan.
I know. There's only so much influence I can have in that regard. I wish I had taken saxophone over clarinet. Babe Magnet.
Especially given...
Could have been in the E Street Band.
Yeah, you were right there in the highlight. You were right there during Lost Boys. I mean, you were right there during the...
so stupid of me to take
the beginning of Kenny G.
I know. Well, Kenny G wasn't baritone. Was he baritone sax?
No, he was alto sax.
Alto sax.
You know that as well as I do.
The straight instead of the curved.
Yeah,
yes.
you know that as well as I do.
That's true.
I mean, let's not pretend. If I know it's alto sax, you know it's
alto sax, not baritone. But, yeah, I had one child take baritone saxophone. He was pretty good at it, but just decided he didn't want to keep going. 3 years.
You got to really put the pedal to the metal and make them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Took it all the way through COVID. I was very happy about that.
Good luck in London. How long are you going for?
A week.
Okay. Do you have the days planned out?
We're trying to get there over Wimbledon. That's what
all right. So you're going to go to Wimbledon? That ain't cheap.
No, it's not. As we found,
we're very, very expensive.
Outstandingly, so expensive. In fact, we're hoping to just get like a grounds pass for 1 day.
Yeah, that's the idea. You go sit on the hill and watch it on TV.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
I know, but I'm not going to go all the way to London to watch it on television.
Yeah, but you get the people around you. You get to, you can go eat the strawberries
people anywhere
and
in
cream.
the United States to watch it with.
You get Pim's Cup? Pim's Cup. All right. Well, there you go. So everyone should get upset at Anthony Rendon for talking in cliches.
By the way, this isn't a secret. Like, there are quotes going back 10 years where he was making pros and cons of playing Major League Baseball. Yeah. He doesn't really enjoy the game that much.
Well, making pros and cons
he likes
list
the money
public.
It's made him.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Well, making pros and cons list, I would say is going a little bit further than saying that faith and family come before baseball.
He's not. I mean, he doesn't. I mean, how many people listening to us right now don't particularly like their job?
I would say 99.9%.
They're just showing up for the paycheck. Well, he's showing up for a much larger paycheck.
Well, once something becomes your job, right? Like a great deal of the joy gets sucked away from it. I mean, I loved watching sports, and then I got the job at CNN Sports Illustrated watching sports, and it sucked. Like when you're forced to do something that immediately takes 99% of the joy out of it. And I would say that, the vast majority of people aren't super psyched to get up this morning and go to work. I wasn't. Were you? When the alarm went off this morning, were you like, oh, this is awesome?
The first thing I think of every day is I can't wait to get back to this bed and go back to sleep.
The first thing I think.
Day.
I mean, the first thing I think about.
We've been at this how long? 14 years? 15 years?
Is that do I really have to get up and go in today? Like, is there a way that I could get out of this?
God.
And unfortunately, I've only accrued 3 hours of sick time.
Congratulations. That's more than you had before.
Yeah, well, I used to have well into the double digits negatives.
Yeah.
So now I've accrued 3 hours, which is almost
a full show.
No. It's a third of a day. Show's 8 hours.
It's almost a half a day.
It's almost a half a day.
So you could punch out sick for the rest of today's show and pretty much be covered.
Yeah, if you want to do the math, yeah. So probably about 8:30 I could punch out and be okay, because the 4-hour show is an 8-hour day. So each hour is 2 hours, obviously.
Right.
So like an hour and a half, 8:30, 8:20-ish, I could probably bag out and be okay. God bless it.
Maybe
God bless
another
the
month. You'll have a whole day.
And you know what? If
I don't know.
you left, we'd be able to talk about why you left. That's the thing.
Exactly. I wouldn't be like this dog biting secret that Zolak's keeping around with him. All right, when we come back, Evan Lazar is going to join us. Everyone is interested in what's going on with the Patriots, what's going on with the draft.
And he has opinions about Matthew Slater.
And they're very novel,
yes.
Unlike everyone else's. All right, we will be right back.
BackstageCountry.com, your online home for all things country music. Wondering who made our list of the top 5 all-time queens of country music? Did Carrie Underwood make the cut? Find out now when you text Queens to 45911 and scroll through the list on BackstageCountry.com. Text Queens to 45911 to see the talented artists who rounded out our top 5 list.
Toucher and Hardy, the reviews are in.
I got to say, I don't want to talk about you. Give me about 5 minutes of my time.
What he said. Now more of on the Sports Hub.
Engulfed by Boston and the Chargers defensively. Now you've got some late pushing and shoving. A guy gets into it with the nicest guy in the NFL and about the nicest guy anywhere, Matthew Slater.
Matthew's like, hey, take your hands off me, buddy.
Hey, we're Toucher and Hardy. Wallach sent me a mock draft the other day, and it had Marvin Harrison going third, and then the wide receiver out of LSU going fourth.
Yep.
And I went, well, if the other receiver is just as good as Marvin Harrison, why would you take someone at that position? If the talent at that position is there's that much talent in the draft, why would you take it that high? You understand?
Yeah.
It seemed odd to me. It's like, well, Marvin Harrison's a once-in-a-lifetime prospect, except for this kid in the same draft. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
And the kid from Washington, apparently, and Bert Breer sat here last week and said that, is it a Dunze? I never pronounce it correctly,
right.
But he apparently is not far behind the other two.
No, he's supposed to be a top 10 pick, too. And so it's just, if Marvin Harrison is this once-in-a-lifetime can't-miss prospect, there's 2 other kids that everyone say are just as good. So how much of a once-in-a-lifetime prospect is Marvin Harrison? And next year, there's not going to be a kid that they say is a can't-miss prospect at that position?
Wide receiver is always very deep.
Because there might not be a quarterback in next year's draft.
No, and that goes back to the point. But anyway, Evan Lazar.
It frustrated me. The mock draft frustrated me. Evan Lazar covers the Patriots for Patriots.com. Where they have highfalutin videos now. You click on it, and there's videos with graphics and everything else.
Oh.
He joins us on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline. Evan Lazar, hello, sir.
How you guys doing?
We are doing well. All right. Matthew Slater should be in the Hall of Fame, you say?
I think so. look, I understand that he's in a unique position as a coverage ace or a special teams only player, but I think he's the best to ever do it. I think that role in special teams, whether we want to balk at it or not, is still a part of the game. It's still a phase of the game, and he's the greatest to ever cover kicks in the history of the league. And I also think that, being around him and the little bit of time that I got to cover him, you can tell the impact that he had on and off the field in that locker room, and just what kind of person and what kind of leader he is. So I think when you put the whole package together, I believe he's very worthy of consideration for the Hall of Fame.
All right. So say he makes the Hall of Fame. Given the way that the game is played now, there would never be a current guy at that position or in the future that could ever make the Hall of Fame, right? Because there's nobody returns kicks anymore.
It's true. That
I mean,
part
I'm
of the
serious.
game,
Like, that part of the game is over.
Yeah,
so, like, he would be the last one.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point that I hadn't thought of. But I think that you still look around the league, and there are still teams that maybe not as many as the Patriots have rostered over the last, couple of years and decade or so with Belichick. But in general, there's still teams, like Justin Hardy on the Jets, who he went up to Slater in the last game of the year. We got it on our mic'd up segment, and talked about how Matthew Slater changed his life because it made a role for him on the Jets roster, and it motivated him to get better at covering kicks and have that be the route that he went in his NFL career. So I do think that there are other teams that roster players like that, maybe not as decorated as Matthew Slater, but I think that teams still have some value in the kicking game, that they will hold a roster spot or two, maybe not 5 or 6 like the Patriots do, but maybe a couple there for those types of players.
Your guys are the ones that mic'd Slater up, because if you haven't seen it, go to Patriots.com, because Slater was mic'd up. They obviously knew going into the Jets game that it was his final game, and they had him mic'd up, and it was, you guys did a great job. That was there was a lot of good stuff there. You could tell, A, how much Slater meant to his teammates, and B, how little anyone on that team cared about that Jets game. Those are the two things you walk around. I mean, even Slater's like, he's more concerned with the nor'easter coming in.
You're 4-12. I kind of get it.
Yeah, I understand what's going on there. But that was very good. That's good, Evan. That was good stuff.
Shout out to our video team on that one.
All right.
One more thing about Slater before we get to your ranking of quarterbacks in the upcoming draft, which I find very interesting. Was Slater a guy, and again, just as a fan or even as a media member, you're really not sure. You see he's always the first guy down there to make a tackle, but from what I've read, people had to scheme around him in special teams. Does it really go to that length?
Well, I definitely think that he saw more double teams in terms of, gunner positioning in the punt team and, how they would use their blockers against the Patriots. He definitely saw more double teams than the majority of guys that you see in the kicking game in the punt coverage stuff. So I would say that, he would always joke that every once in a while he'd get a one-on-one on the outside there as the gunner on the punt team, and his eyes would widen and he'd get all excited because he wasn't going to get mauled by 2 guys at once trying to get down there on the kick. So I do think that there was some game planning. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that takes, days and days to game plan for Matthew Slater, but I think that there was some thought certainly put into how teams were covering these kicks or at least blocking, I should say, for punts in particular.
You know what the Steelers called the coverage that they had to use on him?
What's that?
The auger, because it was a double team situation.
I see.
Do you understand what I'm saying? He would have 2 ladies at once.
I see. You ever watch Jaromir Jagr? You ever watch Jaromir Jagr play, Evan?
Yes, of course. And I played with them, in NHL,
94,
2003 or whatever it was back in the day.
If you went AABBAA, then 2 girls would come on the ice in the game. It's in service.
Go back if you saved your Sega system. Go back and try that.
I mean, you could get Puff Nuts. It was Puff Nuts mode. And it was just him skating away from girls on the ice.
So, Evan, at Patriots.com, you ranked all the quarterbacks that are going to be drafted. And you have some rankings that are interesting. One, Jalen Daniels over Drake May at 2, if I remember correctly. That seems to be the trend. But you like Penix over J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix, too, right?
Yeah, I do. And I understand that, Penix has an injury history, and these rankings were done just based off of what I saw on film. So I don't try to play doctor and predict, who has an injury history and who's going to be more injury prone and things like that. I'll wait until the combine and somebody reports that that's going on. Right. So just watching the film, I think Penix, no doubt about it. Penix's draft year film from this past fall is outstanding. It's as good as anybody in this class. And I look at him and see a quarterback that's more than capable, especially throwing the ball vertically down the field, to be an NFL starter in the league. Whereas a guy like JJ McCarthy, I have concerns that he is either going to be a boom or bust prospect. So I'd much rather take my chances, let's say at like 34, if you're talking about the Patriots, on a guy like Penix versus a guy like JJ McCarthy or even Bo Nix. So I'm still a believer in Penix. I think that, a lot of people were turned off by the college football national championship game, but watching that game back, he was under siege the entire game. Michigan's defense just played out of its mind. I'm not sure what most quarterbacks would have done in that environment. And then you still have that Texas game from the semifinal where he was outstanding. So I like Penix maybe a little bit more than other people. Like I said, if it comes out that his knees are a ticking time bomb and he's not going to make it, then that's a different conversation. But just based off the film, I think that he's a first round guy.
When you looked at JJ McCarthy, Evan Lazar, was it just what Harbaugh allowed him to do? Because people that are, and I know you're just because you're basing it on film, people that are analyzing this draft. A lot of people have McCarthy. They say after he does his pro day and everything, he's going to be a top 10 pick because he just wasn't able to showcase himself. But what did you see that you didn't like?
I guess that's possible, but I don't like to get too enamored with things like pro days where they're throwing against air to scripted receivers. And when I say scripted, I mean like they actually go ahead and plan, like we're going to throw a go ball on this one, we're going to throw a post on that one. So that's not the league, right? Like that's not how the football works in the NFL. And when I look at JJ McCarthy, I think that there are tools there that he could develop into a solid starting quarterback. But at the same time, I look at delayed processing as the biggest one. I mean, there's some really, really head-scratching plays on his film, especially early on in that Alabama game where he's just staring down a receiver and then throws it directly to a defender that was there the entire time. Like, I don't know how he didn't see the guy, those types of interceptions. And then there's also, issues with his touch and his timing in the passing game where, he'll overthrow balls or he doesn't have a whole lot of, pitches. I like guys that have different pitches that can throw with touch and velocity, and he doesn't throw with much touch. So if you're 5 yards away from him, he's going to throw it the same way if you're 20 yards away from him. So those things are all, I suppose, coachable, but it's going to take time and it's going to take, patience to coach up a guy like that. I just don't see him as a day one step into the league and start games in the NFL because of some of the processing and some of the decision-making issues.
Okay, so those are guys that could, are going to not be the top three quarterbacks taken. There are, the top three where the Patriots sit. Do you think every one of those kids is worthy of a top three pick?
I do. I do. I think, the two guys, I would expect Caleb Williams to go 1-1.
Yeah, I guess he's going 1. That's pretty much, I guess, what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine any other scenario. Even if it's not the Bears, somebody trading up to 1 to pick him, it seems like a guarantee. So between Drake May and Jaden Daniels, I've flip-flopped on those two who I like better because they're different. So it's all about flavor of which way you want to go. I think with Drake May, he puts more actual NFL quarterbacking from the pocket on film than anybody else in the top of this draft. So you have Caleb, who's the great improviser. He's got that little Mahomes gene in him. You have Jaden Daniels, who's this unreal runner and mobile, almost like Lamar Jackson level. And then you have Drake May, who I think is more your classic NFL pocket quarterback. Not saying that he can't move around, because he can, but you see the way that he throws the ball to the middle of the field. You see the way that he manipulates coverage. He moves in the pocket. Like, those are the types of things that I still hold a lot of stock into, because I still think that NFL quarterbacking at 90% of the time is what you can do from the pocket. Can you throw in structure, on time, in rhythm, with accuracy from the pocket? That's still a majority of NFL quarterbacking. And I think Drake May might do that the best out of all of them. He's not quite as creative and the improvised thing as Caleb. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have, Jaden Daniels' ability, his mobility, I should say. But in terms of actually throwing the ball from the pocket, I think Drake May is the best out of all these guys. With that being said, Daniels is intriguing, absolutely intriguing. Great deep ball, great timing and touch and accuracy on the deep ball. And then obviously he can run around. So all three of those guys, I think, have tools that are worthy of the number 3 overall pick. If I was the Patriots right now, especially with the scheme that I anticipate them running under Alex Van Pelt, I'd lean a little bit more towards Drake May, because he is that traditional pocket passer. But I think all three of those guys you can work with all three of them.
No, that's good. I like hearing that, because if I'm a Patriots fan, that's what I want them doing. All right, Evan Lazar, they got all the good stuff, including the great mic'd up of Matthew Slater's last game. Regardless if he should be a Hall of Famer or not, that is not up for me to decide. That is up for people like Evan Lazar to decide. Go to Patriots.com. Thank you, Evan.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
We appreciate it. I thought I would be riled up and say Slater doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, and I know this is not great if we were a sports talk radio show, but then I realized I don't care. I can't pretend.
Fred, with that attitude, how are you going to get into the room with Peter King and everybody? And,
I know,
and try to figure out if he's a Hall of Famer.
I have a million arguments, or not a million. I think I have 2 pretty solid arguments of why he shouldn't. Is A, no one ever would get in again because no one returns kicks, and B, he's essentially a failed wide receiver. If he was good at anything else, he would have done something else. But then I think about it, and it's like, well, these guys, everyone nationally, he's so great, and everyone loves him so much.
Yep.
Then let him in the Hall of Fame.
Can you imagine the crying that will take place? We already had the seasonal allergies when he got some award from the media at the end of one season.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the waterworks we're going to get at the Patriots Hall of Fame ceremony when he gets in there?
If he's such a great guy, let him have it. Honestly, I don't care. The Baseball Hall of Fame I care about.
Yes.
Because it's the only one clinging to relevance. But because the Football Hall of Fame, I can contend if you went to Canton, 99% of us wouldn't know 75% of the
Basketball Hall of Fame has gone through some lean years.
There's high school coaches in it. So, it is what it is. It's for basketball. It's not the NBA.
Bobby Hurley's dad was a legend in New Jersey.
That's right. And then you have the Hockey Hall of Fame that's in a mall. And then you go, that's it? That's everyone's reaction to leaving.
That's
it really
you guys described it. You guys have both been there. I have not.
You could walk by it and not even realize.
That's so
sad.
If
you have dinner reservations around the Hockey Hall of Fame and they're it's a half an hour, go to the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's so sad.
And then kill the time.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not impressive. All right, we'll be back. We will get into there was a little media on media ex-player showdown going on regarding Doc Rivers. We will have that for you. Here are the headlines.
BackstageCountry.com, your online home for all things country music. Country music has so many generous artists who always seem to jump in to help those in need. We're spotlighting 5 who lead by example and lend a helping hand to charitable causes. See who made our list when you text GIVE to 45911. Text GIVE to 45911 and read all about it right now on BackstageCountry.com.
Is elongating.
Weekday mornings
Here goes Hardy.
Toucher and Hardy.
I no longer love things.
Let's go. Let's ride.
98.5.
Like, let's roll the dice.
The Sports Zone.
Dig.
Hey, we are Toucher and Hardy, and this hour is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel. People are up in arms about what's going on in Milwaukee, that they hired Doc Rivers, that they fired their coach even though they had the second best record in the East. And then they hired Doc Rivers, who people don't like because he loses all the time in Game 7s in the playoffs.
And has gone 3-7 since taking over.
Yeah. And JJ Reddick, who played for Doc Rivers for the Clippers, that's important to remember. JJ Reddick oftentimes states the obvious, almost politically. He states, like, just popular opinion and then, like, sits back like you're supposed to be. He annoys me for that. Like, he'll say something that's, like, populist, and then he'll act like he just dropped a bomb on you. And you'll be like, well, everyone's just going to nod to this. It's like Trevor Noah on The Daily Show. Like, no one's laughing at Trevor Noah. They're all just nodding in agreement to Trevor Noah. Like, you're just saying things that people like to hear you say. They're not funny. It's not, like, surprising or intellectually curious, raising anyone's curiosity. So here is J.J. Reddick.
I've seen the trend for years.
Oh, why are you yelling?
He was on with Stephen A. Smith. That's why he's yelling.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
you got to crank up the volume.
He was on with Stephen A. That's why there's yelling.
But if you yell at Stephen A., like if you hear like Mad Dog on, who's got to yell because like that's his whole thing. But like when he does that, like Stephen A. would come back with a ha ha ha. Yeah, I can also talk in this tone.
Can't believe you fixed your mouth to say something like that.
I can also talk in this tone. Then I can get up here if I need to. If you are like a Sean McAdam type, I can keep it going. But if you come at me like Mad Dog, I can talk like this.
I've seen the trend for years.
What's the trend?
The trend.
Tell me I haven't had my 10,000 hours of this.
That's right.
Tell me I haven't had my 10,000 hours of broadcasting.
Well done.
Thank you.
I've seen the trend for years.
What's the trend?
The trend is always making excuses. Doc, we get it. Taking over a team in the middle of the season is hard. It's hard. We get it. Just like getting traded in the middle of the season is hard for a player. We get it. Mm-hmm. But it's always an excuse. It's always throwing your team under the bus. They lose to Memphis. Oh, it's his players' fault. Memphis was playing G League guys and two-way guys. And then you look at his quotes over the weekend. Now he wants to take credit for the James Harden trade to the Clippers working out. He wants credit for that. There's never accountability with that guy. Well, there's never accountability.
Well, he's very upset about things I don't know about, but nonetheless, the important thing about this is, he's very on top of what Doc Rivers has said about the James Harden trade, which was when?
No, this is, last year?
All right. So here comes Austin Rivers, who, if you don't know, is Doc Rivers' son. Mm-hmm. He also is a Duke alum.
Played out for his dad in L.A. For a while before his dad cut him loose.
He's a bit
like a lot of other teams.
He's a real dork, and he started talking about J.J. Reddick here.
First off, I don't feel responsible to take up for my dad. He's a grown man. He can do his own thing.
If I told you that was Tiger Woods, you would not argue with me.
That's true. It's true.
This is a man who talks just like Tiger Woods.
Yeah. First off, I don't feel responsible to take up.
Can you get a clip of Tiger Woods talking? I just need to compare the two, please. Thank you.
First off, I don't feel responsible to take up for my dad. He's a grown man. He can do his own thing. But in this regard, I just simply don't agree with it. For someone who's not accountable, he seems to always be held responsible, considering he's the guy that's always fired when things don't go right. And I have some love for JJ. You're my dookie. You know that. You're my bro. I love you. This just seems a little bit weird. They're 3-7. Dame has missed most of those games. Middleton's missed a lot of those games. They haven't even had their full team yet.
How about you just say they're 3-7 and no one cares? It's February and it doesn't matter that they're 3-7. That if they win the East, that everyone will forget about all of this. If they win a Game 7 in the playoffs, it's not going to matter what they did in February. There's a lot of consternation. I understand the NFL is over, but there's a lot of consternation about 10 games in February in the NBA. I mean, this is really an awful fine point in a lot of. Austin Rivers is he's about to get super passive aggressive, but the the passion that JJ Reddick is bringing into the flamethrower he's bringing into this pretty inconsequential conversation. Don't you think that? Don't you agree that this is much ado about nothing at this point?
Yeah, we're in the dog days of the NBA season. This is now that we're past the All-Star break. It's like, how many games left before the playoffs? Let's just get there,
because it's all just conversation. If he ends up winning a couple rounds of the playoffs, if they end up beating the Celtics by some miracle in the playoffs, that no one's going to care that he went 3-7.
Yeah, but the NBA as a league has basically been shut down for the last week. Yeah. ESPN has minutes to fill.
Yeah. And then, but ESPN had to be like, "Oh my God, we have Austin Rivers. Like, he's got to talk about this. Right. This is the greatest thing ever." So I won't interrupt it. Here's Austin Rivers.
This is how the ESPN operates. It's like one guy goes on one of the morning shows, says something, and then they just milk it for the next 48 hours.
Which is why, and I have to hand it to Rich because he was the one who pointed it out, and I agree with him. I was like, why the hell do they have all these guys on at 10 in the morning? No one's watching television at 10 in the morning. No one's consuming media at 10 in the morning, really. And the point was, so they have it.
They need content the rest of the day.
This is their content for the rest of the day, and it made total sense. All right, so here's where he gets passive-aggressive.
We'll see what happens. The pressure is there. They do have to perform. But in terms of accountability, like, what are we doing here? Your best years in the NBA were when you played for him in the Clippers. Let's not forget that. I don't know if there's, like, frustration there or there's tension there between you. I know a lot of times we had to sit you towards the end of the game due to defensive reasons. But you had your best years as a starter there, especially our whole system was drafted around you because you're a shooter. You're not a guy who could put the ball on the floor. You were a strictly shoot guy. You're not like Klay Thompson or Steph who could put the ball on the floor. You're a guy who could catch and shoot. And you did it at a high level. Hell of a career, by the way. Big fan. But your best years were under him. It's just very ironic and kind of weird that you have this energy towards him in terms of him never, ever being accountable, considering he's always been responsible.
All right, there you go.
I like the we. like Austin Rivers was part of the rotation and played a lot.
Well,
we had to sit you.
Well, and he was also one of the decision makers. He had his father's ear.
That's right.
All right. Here's Tiger Woods, by the way. This is the big thing. Here's Tiger Woods.
Well, I think I've come a long way.
And
from being a little bit rusty
Rivers.
to playing 4 days and knock off a lot of rust, which was great.
First off, I don't feel responsible to take off for my dad. He's a grown man. He can do his own thing.
Well, I think I've come a long way. From being a little bit rusty to playing 4 days and knock off a lot of rust, which was great.
First off, I don't feel responsible to take off for my dad. He's a grown man. He can do his own thing. But in this regard, I just simply don't agree with it.
I mean, that is almost an impression. Yeah. So, your thoughts, JJ Reddick? He was too much of a catch and shoot. He wasn't enough off the dribble.
That's accurate.
That's accurate. He's no Clay.
No,
I was under the impression he was a lot like Steph Curry.
He's a very poor man's Klay Thompson. No, JJ Reddick was a catch and shoot guy, and that's what kept him in the league for all those years.
They had to pull him from games for defensive reasons.
That's true too.
This was a big problem.
Yes.
Did you notice that in your broadcasting career?
That's true too. I don't think I did a JJ Reddick game. I might have done one or two.
I'm not really sure what J.J. Reddick's playing ability has to do with Doc Rivers accepting accountability for his errors.
Well, you take a shot at my dad, I'll take a shot at your career.
Yeah, damn right. But he's a grown-ass man. I don't have to take up for him. And then you spent the next 4 minutes taking up for him.
And you did your job. You took a dead time in the NBA and you created something that we just played.
Congratulations.
So Austin Rivers, actually, that's probably the best thing he's ever done in his career doing anything.
Yeah.
Outside of Duke. It's probably better than anything he did in the NBA.
JJ Reddick, who we've had on this show and was pretty good, if I remember correctly.
He was all right.
All right, so Reddick is now the part of the number one broadcast team. Get ready, because it's all Reddick all the time when we get to the playoffs with Breen and Doris Burke. So.
Yeah, I don't doubt that he could be a good color commentator.
He's one of those guys that is polarizing because he may give you good information, but he says it in such a pompous way that it pisses you off.
And then he says populist, trite crap, but he says it like you're in a preachy kind of, can you believe annoying. I'm saying this kind of way that's really annoying? Because he's just, pontificating. He says, race stuff that's, obvious. It's racism. Basically, racism's bad. And you're like, okay. But he's like, racism's bad. and I'm here to tell you, boom, racism is bad.
Mic drop.
And then you're like, wait, you, a white NBA commentator, are taking the side that racism is bad.
Yep.
This is really groundbreaking stuff, JJ Reddick.
You have that, the pompous tone, and the built-in Duke hatred all in a row to start with.
Yeah, the multiple years at Duke too. You can't, because like Tatum, you don't associate.
He
Tatum
was a
with
one
Duke.
and done. He got out before the stink was on him.
Yeah,
That's
you're
true.
talking you're talking white guard at Duke. That's a rarefied air.
Yeah, did Reddick was before Wojo, right? Or was he after him? I'm trying to remember.
Or were they teammates at one point?
I don't remember.
Because Wojo
That's
was
a
a
long
point
time
guard
ago.
who would slap the floor.
Yeah, that's right.
He was super annoying.
Mm-hmm. And Reddick was one of those guys.
Yeah, well,
Reddick was one of those guys.
Reddick
who
was
booed.
good.
The second he came out of the tunnel, he started. He was amazing in college.
Yeah, Wojo.
He was really good. Wojo was not.
Wojo was not.
No,
he was not as good. He played a lot of minutes.
Wojo's 8 years older than Reddick.
Oh.
Okay, so they never crossed paths.
Listen. But then Reddick had the rap record.
Oh, that's right.
What Austin Rivers should have done is just come out with Reddick's rapping and been like, "That's
mic drop." Did not say anything,
and just not said anything. That would have
JJ,
been
here's what I think about what you said, and then
no, not even if they just had a scroll that said, "This is JJ Reddick," and he just sat there with a boombox, playing him rapping.
Yep.
All right, Ryan Johnston has uncovered some news for us that is sure to delight, I'm told. So
very curious to get your reaction to this. I think you will enjoy it thoroughly.
All right. I look forward to it. We will have that for you in just a moment.